Old Roney, story by Alton Melrose Poulson, book written and illustrated by Jim Poulson. Alton was in his bed dreaming. He was riding a wonderful horse, a horse that could jump over anything. But suddenly Alton woke up and heard a rooster crowing. He got up and went to the window. It's another bright and sunny morning on the farm. A pony runs by the window. Alton can hear his mother making noises in the kitchen. He goes down, and the table is all set with the chairs turned backwards. That's so they won't forget their family prayers. Alton's dad kneels at one end, Edna at the other, with their 6 children in between. After a hearty breakfast, it's time to go to work. The cows need milking, and Alton knows just how to do that, so he gets plenty of milk in the pail. Sometimes the cat stands close by, and Alton gives them a taste of milk. Morning chores are done, and it's off to the fields. The boys take turns riding in front with Dad. The rest ride in the bed of the wagon. The 4 boys and John, their dad, work very hard pitching hay. Meanwhile, Edna is back at the house with the 2 girls fixing a nice cooked meal. After a hard morning's work, the boys are hungry, and they're glad to see Edna bringing the food out to the field. It was usually a cooked meal. When lunch is over, John and the boys take a nap in the shade of the wagon. Alton dreams about riding his horse. That's what he loves to do when he's not working. It's back to work after nap time. While he's working, Alton's mind wanders. He remembers some of the times he's had his horses. Alton has always had a horse to ride, and sometimes that's what he does. He just rides. One day as he was riding, he came to a stream, and Alton decided to jump it. But just as he got ready to do it, the horse decided not to. And over the stream, Alton flew. Alton found himself clear on the other side of the stream, and back across the stream stood the horse. That was not his favorite horse. Old Roney was the one. Alton didn't hunt often, but one day he took old Roney and he was looking for rabbits out in the fields. He spotted a rabbit and raised his gun to fire. But just as he squeezed the trigger, old Roney turned his head. Oh, no. Roney fell to the ground. He was completely motionless. Alton got a big tear in his eye, and his hand was shaking as he shook the saddle off the fallen horse. He was sure Roney was dead, so he put the saddle on his shoulder and started home. But suddenly he heard something. It sounded like the clip-clop of hooves. He stopped and slowly turned around. There stood old Roney. The horse just stood there while Alton put the saddle back on. Then he rode him home. Roney lived a long life after that, but he had a little whistle every time he breathed. Come on, Alton, it's time to go home. The sun was starting to set, and Alton joined the others. Alton's family, Holden, Utah. Alton, Merrill, John C., Lorraine, Winford, Edna, Stan. Phil was born 9 years after Win. Al Poulson as a young man. Poulson home, Holden, Utah. Portrait pedigree. The stories in this little book were told by Alton M. Poulson to his children and grandchildren. Alton grew up on a farm in Holden, Utah. He was born May 17, 1903. His father, John Christian Poulson, at one time owned as many as 5 farms in Millard County. Alton and his 4 brothers helped raise crops and cattle. Years later, more than once, when he and Velma visited Jim Poulson's family in Alamosa, Colorado, Alton would tell his granddaughter Pam stories from his youth. She loved to hear him talk about those days on the farm. She would usually ask to hear them when it was about time for her to go to bed. At one of his visits, after he had told her the stories in this book and others, Pam said with eagerness in her voice, "Tell me another one." He got that famous Al Poulson grin on his face and said, "I can't remember anymore." She quickly replied, "Start over." He was very pleased that she was that excited hearing about his life. Alton's granddaughter Lisa also remembered the horse stories. When Lisa's son Ski's second birthday was approaching, she called me and said, "Dad, please don't buy a present for Ski's birthday. All I want is for you to write down some of those horse stories your dad used to tell when Ski was a toddler, and for some time after, it seemed like all he wanted to do was to play with his toy horses. He would often have one in each hand and would proudly come up to family and friends saying, 'Horsey, horsey.'" I was very busy at the time and put it off until very close to his birthday, maybe even that same morning. I thought it might be fun to add some drawings, so I did some simple sketches to go with it. Roan, the name Roney, pronounced with the long O, may have come from the term roan horse, having a bay chestnut or sorrel coat thickly sprinkled with white or gray. Guns, growing up, we never saw a gun in our house. We don't know for certain that had anything to do with Alton and old Roney. The end.